Now here's another one that you're starting to hear from Republican propaganda with the issue of impeaching Trumpy boy. And the Republicans are trying to say, well, they got him, it'll be like Bill Clinton impeachment, where he gets in, the impeachment process starts, it passes in the House, and it dies. And that's what's going to happen because, well, wait a minute. Bill Clinton is not the vast, overt, criminal fraud that Trumpy boy is. You start an impeachment inquiry. Now, the real comparison is with Nixon. You don't go to Bill Clinton. You go to the 45th anniversary of where we are right now, here in 2019, which is the impeachment and resignation of Nixon. And the House began impeachment inquiry and then opened impeachment. And bango, because they brought in impeachment, they brought in experts, they brought in witnesses, they had evidence, and it piles up about Nixon's overt criminality. So much so that the Senate, which had the Republicans, who were, we're not going to let Dick Nixon get crucified, even though Nixon was a complete criminal. Complete. Just a real mess here. The Republicans are still saying, because he's Republican, and they're saying the same thing with Trump. Oh, because he's Republican, we're just not going to do anything, because really Trump is Republican. He's not any different than all the rest of those slime balls who are Republican. And all things Republican are just what you're seeing in Trump. Corporate criminality, racism, white supremacy, repression of women, repression of homosexual rights, and continued just weird racism. Trying to do things like block African American citizens from voting even across the country. Coming up with all sorts of made-up excuses when the real effort is block African Americans from voting. Block you from voting, folks, that's a criminal act. That's not just playing politics here. That's a criminal act. But all Republicans are Trump and Pence, too. Don't throw out Pence. There's the Pence, the Christian wacko right there. So when they start in the House and they start impeachment proceedings against Trumpy boy, it ain't going to be like Bill Clinton. Republicans spent $40 million of your taxpayer money to hunt around and find something about Bill Clinton, and they couldn't find anything. So what did they come up with? Well, he lied about having sex. He lied about having sex with an extramarital affair. That's what he did. That's it, folks. For $40 million. It was even at the time, it was being called an attempt by Republicans for a legislative coup d'etat. Because they had nothing. They were just trying to that was it. Now, the real comparison isn't Bill Clinton. The real comparison is with Nixon. Once they begin the impeachment proceedings against Trumpy boy and start bringing in the evidence, the witnesses, the actual sworn testimony, it starts to get very open to the public, because it's, this will be a very public thing. You're starting to hear this overt criminality of Trump. Multiple felonies going on. So that the pressure then does become onto the Republicans in the Senate to say, are they going to just not carry out their duty? They're not going to do it, even in the face of such overt criminality as Trump. Well, you might be surprised to see how criminal is the Republican Party. Because yes, there could be, even under the stack of evidence already after the Mueller report, we got over 500 federal prosecutors who have said, Trumpy boy is guilty of multiple felonies. Right there. Right there already. And so when you start going in and you start digging in here and start exposing all this activity and these payoffs and taking money from Russians and going in and Russian, whoa, wait a minute, see, it's Russians putting money into the Republican Party. The whole Republican Party was getting money from Russia. The whole Republican Party is a criminal enterprise. It's illegal to take foreign money for an election like this. Justifiably, you don't want people just from other countries just buying their way in to our elections, folks. You don't want that. And that's what the Republican Party did. Here's you've heard this one. There's the Russian mafia guy, and he put $30 million. But he had to money launder it, see? This is the gray area they're going to try and say, oh, we didn't know. The Russian mafia guy took $30 million. He had the Russian spy, this woman, who has been convicted of being a spy. And she funneled that money, $30 million, into the NRA, National Rifle Association. And the National Rifle Association, who happened to have as one of their top dogs, Ollie North, a criminal from back in the Reagan era. Ollie North was part and leader of running Reagan's cocaine trafficking scam of the Iran-Contra affair. Look it up yourself. So the Russian mob is putting $30 million into the Republican Party via the NRA. The NRA took that $30 million. Now it's kind of money laundered, see? And then it goes into the Republican Party from the NRA. So the cover is that the Republican Party, oh, we didn't know it was from Russia. We just thought it was for the NRA. They're covered, see? And money laundering. Well, there's a similar thing with Trumpy boy that's rather disconcerting. Now remember, after 2008, Republican disaster, the economic collapse at the end of Bush-Cheney. They had 8 years of Republicans under Bush-Cheney. You saw the country just go into complete freefall to the worst recession since 1929. That's Republican economics. And so the whole national, here in America, all the national economy is frozen, tight. Nobody's lending money, doing anything. Internationally, it's a mess too. But somehow, during that same time frame from several years after 2008, still in this collapse, Trumpy boy is going around and ends up spending $400 million in cash buying real estate. Well, wait a minute, folks. That's what the Russian mob was doing. That's what the Russian, this Ukrainian mafia guy, that's what he was doing with Republican Paul Manafort. He was embezzling money out of the Ukrainian government, millions of dollars, and he needs to money launder it. So the scam is he gets to Paul Manafort, who is head of Reagan's election committee, right? Campaign. And Paul Manafort money launders it into American banks with the excuse that, we're going to buy real estate. We're buying real estate, so this is like deposits money to show that we really have the money and we're going to buy some very expensive real estate, millions of dollars. But then, of course, they never buy the real estate. because all they really wanted was the money to be now money laundered in an American bank. And there it is. And that was the scam. Well, the same thing is going on with Trumpy Boy. He's getting Russian mafia money, millions and millions and millions of dollars. And he's going around in this economic frozen time period because of the Republican collapse at 2008. And Trumpy Boy is spending $400 million in cash buying real estate. The same scam. That's why he can't release his taxes. That's why he can't release his financial thing. Because it goes to show, oops, he had ties with that mobster, that Russian mobster. Oh, and they were buying real estate in cash. So Trumpy Boy was just money laundering for all these Ruskies. That's what it comes down to. It's part of the reason he can't show you what he's done. The other thing, of course, is everything he told you about himself is a fraud. He is a big scam. He is a fraud. He is living massively in debt. He is just, borrowing money to pay off some debt and then making some money off of this and getting more in debt and then paying. Big sham. Big sham. And all that can start to come out in impeachment because you got to say, now, is anything you've been doing, because we're looking at Russia and all this stuff, well, we got to know, well, what's your money? What does your finances show? And it's quite justified to say, all right, buddy, we got to see your financials. All of them. Oops. Down goes Trumpy Boy. Amongst other felonies, by the way, of course, all this obstruction of justice, it did happen, all this stuff, well, okay. Then it would be up to, and so he gets impeached in the House. He goes to the Senate, where it's controlled by the criminal Republicans. And so you got to say, when all this public information starts coming about Trump's overt criminality, what are those Republican senators actually going to do? Are they going to be like they so far have been, where they just deny everything, they just turn their back on it, because they're actually in cahoots, they're doing very similar attitude and activity and ideas as Trumpy Boy. So they'll just keep doing that. That's what they've been showing us so far. Or do they become like the Republican senators during Nixon's era, when all this stuff started to come out of the extent of the Nixon criminality that was irrefutable? There's the evidence. And Nixon went down because the Republican senators said, we can't vote for you here, buddy. We can't keep holding you up here. We can't go against all this evidence. Come on. And so you're either going to jail or you're going to resign. And so Nixon resigned. And it all could, it can't happen until you actually get this impeachment process going. So you actually are starting to expose and bring in the evidence so that you and me, the public, can actually start to see, oh, wow, look how much of a criminal old Trumpy Boy is, for sure. Look what a liar, fraud, criminal this guy has been. So to right now, this is early 2019, they're still trying to, Republicans then taking the propaganda, are trying to equate Trumpy Boy with Bill Clinton. They don't want to talk about Trumpy Boy and the other overt criminal, Nixon. That's the real comparison. What did Bill Clinton have that they were really ended up with after $40 million of your taxpayer money being spent? Well, he lied about having sex. That's what it came down to. That was it. That was it. That's it. Versus Nixon, money laundering, blackmail, payoffs, obstruction of justice. On and on and on about Nixon. And the same thing would be the real comparison. It's not Trump and Bill Clinton. It's Trump and Nixon. And once the pressure and the evidence came out just by opening that impeachment proceedings and beginning with it and getting the evidence out into the public, so you really got the information, not little sound bites, not little blips on the news, not a little, nowadays a little article or a little blip on your news feed or something, on the internet. Instead, you got the real deal. Court proceedings, essentially like a court proceedings, an exposure. And believe me, it's just like the Nixon one. It'll be televised. It'll be televised. So it'll be going for hours. You can see the whole proceeding. You can hear the full disclosure of this criminality. And Trumpy boy will go down. And just like Nixon, he'll face the thing of, well, you're going to get, impeached in the Senate, because the Senate Republicans will have to say, man, faced with all this money laundering and overt acts of felonies, how are we going to, even though we like you, even though Republicans are like him, like Trump, even though they are the same kind of racist and criminality, how can they do that and try and go into 2020 election as anything but a vast criminal enterprise like Trump? So to save their ass, they got to say, all right, we got to vote him out. Or, Trumpy boy, you got to resign. Now the trouble with old Trumpy boy is the path is clear that once he does resign and becomes then just a private citizen again, there's civil courts are waiting to jump on him. And they're going to bring charges against him in the court system. New York has already got all stuff brewing right now. And they've been on Trump's illegalities now for a few years, finding out all sorts of stuff. Already. And once he becomes that private citizen, by resignation, bam, he's in the courts again. So he's kind of trapped, isn't he? Either way, he's got to be impeached, and the evidence is there. And then he's impeached, and he's out, thrown out, or he resigns, and he's thrown out. And then once he's there and he's a private citizen, he's going to jail again. He's going to courts again. Double. So it's the real comparison is not, and the Republicans are working hard to try and drum up a propaganda that says Trump is like Bill Clinton. And they sure don't want to start saying Trump is like who he really is, like the criminal Nixon. There's the reality. But as you know, Republicans are just trying to... reality isn't Republicans' strong suit. Republicans don't like facts. Republicans don't like an open news media because, the open news media keeps finding out that Republicans are vast criminals over and over again. So, of course, they've been saying for years, oh, this news media, it's biased. Oh, geez, it's biased. In fact, it really took off and started with Nixon. And Nixon, through his vice president, who was a criminal, Spiro Agnew, he had to quit the vice presidency because he was a criminal. Spiro Agnew started saying, there's just this bias in the media. Geez, it's a liberal bias against us. Oh, gosh, yeah, it's a bias. Oh, gosh. And guess what? The facts, they don't like. The facts got old Spiro Agnew convicted. The facts got Nixon to resign, where he should have actually ended up in jail, of course. The facts found Republican hypocrite Reagan running cocaine in his Iran-Contra scam. At the same time, old Ronnie Boy was standing up going, just say no to drugs. Ron Reagan and Bush Sr. were big-time cocaine traffickers. And they don't like it in Bush Cheney. They don't like the media either. Because the media was looking around saying, what do you mean invade Iraq? That's all lies. And, you know, the open news media just looked around and said, what do you mean? There isn't any tie of Saddam Hussein to 9/11. No, Saddam doesn't have weapons of mass destruction. No, Saddam didn't get nuclear materials from Niger, Africa. That was all lies made up by Republican Bush Cheney. So in the escalation of, trying to, don't listen to the news media of these Republicans going and going, right? It has escalated till you get to the biggest fraud and criminal so far of Republican, Trumpy boy, who says, it's just fake news. Even though they got him again and again in lies, in criminal behavior, in the collapse of the big fraud of his Trump University, in the big fraud of his, he had a charity organization. But guess what? It wasn't a charity organization. Trumpy boy was taking money from the charity organization to use for himself. So much so that he's been, and his whole family, have been cut out from access or ever starting a charity organization again because they were so fraudulent. Over and over again. Desperate to say, oh no, don't believe that. Oh no, don't do it. Of course they do. Republicans don't like facts. Because Republicans sink in the reality of facts. They can't compare Trump to Bill Clinton. The comparison is Trump to Nixon. Two Republicans, two very overt criminals, and both of them are going down.